Now, the countdown has officially begun for Russian President Vladimir Putin's arrival in the national capital today for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit. Now, this will be Putin's first visit to India since 2021. The visit comes at a time when New Delhi and Moscow are working to keep their decades-old strategic partnership steady amid global pressure, US sanctions and rapidly shifting economic realities. Now, in recent years, these annual summits have only deepened the relationship. India-Russia trade touched a record $65.70 billion in the financial year 2023 to 24, and both sides are now aiming to push that number even higher. Here's what Putin's itinerary looks like. Today, Putin and Prime Minister Modi will have an informal meeting with the Prime Minister, also planning a dinner for the Russian President at 7 LKM. Now, on December 5th, the two leaders will hold a formal meeting and sign all major agreements. During this period, 10 government and more than 15 business agreements will be signed. This means a total of 25 major agreements are expected to be signed. 7 top Russian ministers will accompany Putin to India, including Defense Minister Belosov, Finance Minister Anton Sulyonov, and Central Bank of Russia Governor Elvira Nabiullina. Now, Russia has not yet released the names of the remaining 4 ministers. Besides these, prominent Russian businesses leaders are also coming, including Igor Sechin, head of the Russian oil company Rosneft. So, what does the summit signal for both nations? The summit gives New Delhi and Moscow a reliable platform to align their positions on global challenges and reinforce a partnership that has proven adaptable despite sanctions, tariffs, and turbulence in global politics. But there is concern for India. How will Washington respond? President Donald Trump has already doubled tariffs on Indian goods, warning New Delhi over its continued purchase of discounted Russian crude. Any new energy or defense deal with Moscow could trigger more pressure from the United States. Now, defense is expected to dominate the agenda. India will operate a large fleet of Russian origin platforms, so discussions on fresh deals are expected. Key topics on the table include additional S-400 air defense systems and the possibility of advanced fighter jets like the Sukhoi 57. The New Delhi has not taken any decision on these matters yet. India will also push strongly for joint production and technology transfer in areas such as missiles, submarines and fighter jets. Now, in aviation, HAL and Russia's United Aircraft Corporation have agreed to co-produce the SJ-100 passenger aircraft. This is exactly the kind of collaboration that supports India's goal of greater self-reliance in defense as well as civil aviation sectors.
भारत और रूस के रिश्ते कितने प्रगाढ़ रहे हैं वो किसी से भी छिपे नहीं हैं। एक बार फिर से व्लादिमीर पुतिन जो हैं वो भारत आ रहे हैं, लेकिन उससे पहले किस तरह की तैयारी जो है वो देश की राजधानी दिल्ली में देखने को मिल रही है। रसिया हाउस एक कल्चर सेंटर है, यहाँ पर हम आपको तस्वीरें दिखाएं तो ये देखिए, यहाँ पर मौजूदा प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी से लेकर के अब से पहले जो भी प्रधानमंत्री रहे हैं उनसे रूस का क्या रिश्ता रहा है वो यहाँ पर दिखाता है आपको। यहाँ पर अलग अलग मौके पर प्रधानमंत्री मोदी से उनकी मुलाकात जो हुई हैं, चाहे वो देश में हो या विदेश में, उन सबको लेकर के यहाँ दर्शाया गया है। इससे पहले 2022 में आए थे। यहाँ देखिए आपको प्रधानमंत्री जो हैं मनमोहन सिंह जो हैं वो आपको दिखाई देंगे। ये रिश्ता कितना पुराना है और कब कब जो है रूस ने भारत की जो है वो रिश्ता प्रगाढ़ किया है, मदद की है हर तरीके से, चाहे बात सैन्य शक्ति की हो या फिर बात हो सामरिक या फिर एनर्जी की। और भी आपको तस्वीरें जो हैं हम दिखाने की कोशिश करते हैं। देखिए, अभी भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच जब संघर्ष हुआ था तो आपने S-400 जो है वो उसका करिश्मा देखा था, किस तरीके से एक एंटी ड्रोन का काम किया था। हर वो जो हमला हो रहा था पाकिस्तान की तरफ से उसको निस्तो नाबूद किया था। और आप देखेंगे यहाँ ब्रह्मोस की बात हम कैसे भूल सकते हैं, वो ये भी दिखाता है कि क्या रिश्ते जो हैं वो मायने रखते हैं और किस तरीके से फलते फूलते हैं। आगे देखेंगे अब टैंक से लेकर के तमाम यहाँ पर वो चीज़ें डिस्प्ले की गई हैं जिससे हमें ये याद आए कि किस तरीके से रूस और भारत के रिश्ते जो हैं वो हर क्षेत्र में रहे हैं। यहाँ पर देखिए T-90S जो है वो आपको नज़र आएगा, चाहे फाइटर प्लेट्स की हम बात करें। और यहाँ पर आप देखेंगे तो आपको पेंसिल S1 जो है वो दिखाई देगा, प्रोजेक्ट 113 F-5-6 यहाँ पर नज़र आएगा। MiG-29 जो है उसकी आप तस्वीर यहाँ पर देखिए। सुखोई 30 MK-1 जो है वो आपको दिखाई देगा। सुखोई 57E तमाम चीज़ों को यहाँ पर प्रदर्शित किया गया। वहीं पर अगर बात करूँ तो इस रसियन हाउस के अंदर एक विशेष डॉक्यूमेंट्री जो है वो भी दिखाई गई थी, जिसमें भारत और रूस के दरमियान जो रिश्ते हैं और कब कब किस तरीके से वो आगे बढ़े उसको लेकर के दर्शाया गया था। और आपको बता दें कि जिस तरीके से अब पुतिन जो हैं एक बार फिर से 2022 के बाद भारत आ रहे हैं, 4 और 5 दिसंबर को यहाँ पर रहेंगे, तो उम्मीद जताई जा रही है कि इस दौरान भारत और रूस के जो रिश्ते हैं उसमें आगे बढ़ेंगे और एक नया अध्याय जो है वो लिखा जाएगा। और इसके साथ में इस बीच जो हैं कई अहम जो कह सकते हैं कि संधि जो हैं वो दोनों देशों के बीच में समझौते जो हैं वो देखेंगे को मिलेंगे, ताकि भारत और रूस का रिश्ता और भी मजबूती के साथ उभरे। वीडियो से होगी।
Energy will be another major driver for the summit. Since 2022, oil has emerged as the strongest pillar of India-Russia partnership, with Moscow becoming one of India's largest crude suppliers. Despite US sanctions, shipments have continued, but the new sanctions announced on November 21st have complicated shipping routes and insurance. Both leaders are expected to address this issue. Beyond defense and energy, both sides have been working on shipping, agriculture, industrial projects and potential free trade agreement with the Eurasian Economic Union. President Putin has asked his top deputy, Denis Monterov, to identify trade gaps and propose solutions. Russia wants to further open its market to Indian products, including machinery, chemicals, pharmaceuticals and food items. Both nations are optimistic about pushing bilateral trade towards the $100 billion mark. To secure India's long-term fertilizer needs, New Delhi has also exploring the setting up of a urea plant in Russia, a project that could be announced soon. India and Russia are set to unveil a wide range of agreements during the upcoming talks in New Delhi.
President Putin is to visit New Delhi today for a visit around 30 hours long. By tradition, Indo-Russian relations have been quite substantive, and these substantiality is anchored around the annual summits. So these summits take strategic decisions and give new direction to the relationship at the highest level. In this particular event, beginning today, there would be an extraordinary situation which will lend further weight to the relationship and its current dynamic.
We're also joined in by Professor Swaran Singh, School of International Studies at JNU. Professor, today when we see a visit that's happening by Putin, there's a lot of questions that will be asked in the West, but a lot of understanding that will happen in the East. When you talk about questions from the West has been always trying to figure out how is it that USSR-India relation continues as a Russia-India relationship, because they think that Russia is a new entity and not a continuation of the USSR. And we tend to, in fact, focus on what the USSR had done for India. But at the same time, we have had that same dynamics built upon when it comes to Russia. And when it comes to understanding in the East, how do you think that China will be viewing this visit as well?
I think very clearly China would be particularly concerned with the certain indications that Russia-India relationship could move even beyond what they call special and privileged strategic partnership and move to possibly no limits partnership, which is how Russia-China relations are described since February of 2022. And therefore, that is something particularly Beijing will be looking forward to, whether Russia is trying to equal and match up a relationship with Russia, China in terms of India-Russia relationship. Other than that, I think definitely a dozen or more agreements could be signed. The ongoing decades-long relationship in terms of defense cooperation could move forward. More recently, energy partnership in terms of oil could move forward in terms of how to overcome the sanctions that United States has placed now on Lukoil and Rosneft. But I think particularly interesting for the world will be to see the body language of two leaders and what kind of bonhomie or red carpet welcome President Putin receives in India. And India would be showcasing partly driven by reinforcing the sense of strategic autonomy to showcase that India's multi alignment policy wishes to engage all major stakeholders in global governance, whether it is European countries, United States, China, or Russia as well. But for Russia, I think it's going to be interesting platform because, as you know, for about last 4 years, in context of Ukraine war, Russian president has not been able to travel around, given the fact that International Criminal Court has issued warrants against him. His visit to India, to world's largest population country, largest democracy, emerging economy, would therefore bring him a certain visibility and limelight in global media. So he would also be keen to showcase that India-Russia bonhomie is very strong, lasting, and how they can make that relationship future-proof and make it broad-based to go beyond a limited bandwidth of crude oil imports of India and even beyond nuclear power generation cooperation and defense cooperation to go to other areas. And I think among other areas, India's pharmaceuticals, agriculture, seafood,